As you may have heard, Kayla Mueller, a 26-year-old worker that was captured by ISIS in 2013, was pronounced dead just 2 weeks ago. Mueller died when a Jordanian airstrike occurred and caused the building that she was in to collapse. ISIS has contacted her family in May, saying that she was still alive. The militants said that they would kill her if they did not pay the $7 billion bail. Mueller also wrote a letter to her family, asking for forgiveness. Kayla Mueller is also willing to offer a helpful hand, whether it be her humanitarian service, volunteering across the world, including Palestine and India, working at a women's shelter, or assisting at an HIV/AIDS clinic.
From Washington, the Justice Department is preparing a lawsuit against Ferguson, Missouri's police department for their pattern of racially discriminatory actions used commonly in the past by the department. The latest death of Michael Brown has brought national attention to the race crisis in Ferguson and has many questioning the police department's practices in the town. Although the Justice Department won't charge for the shooting of Michael Brown, sources say they will sue for changes in the department. The Justice Department hopes for changes in the treatment of minority communities. The Justice Department says that they have found minorities with minor traffic infractions were targeted and then jailed when they couldn't pay the fines. There will be plans to announce the outcome of the dual investigation during an appearance at the National Press Club on Tuesday. They are currently preparing a lawsuit. Back to you, Alicia.
Thank you, Jill. The eastern half of the United States is currently suffering from deep freeze temperatures. 100 U.S. citizens in the eastern half of the U.S. could possibly break record low temperatures. Atlanta, Georgia, stretching all the way to Jacksonville, Florida, have already broke these records, leaving Florida at a record low temperature of 23 degrees and Atlanta at 14. There are over 100 million people who are currently under some sort of wind chill advisory and warnings, leaving the Florida-Georgia line under hard freezing warnings, which is a big deal in consolidation with crops and citrus fruits being killed off. Citizens of these eastern states are also baffled as these temperatures are 25 to 45 degrees below normal. As we already know, 2014 was recorded the hottest year ever recorded, breaking record high temperatures, but could 2015 be the year we break record low temperatures? Several winter storms over just a few weeks have added up to 58.5 inches of snow through the month of February in Boston, Massachusetts. The snow was followed by dangerously freezing temperatures with wind chills reaching 30 degrees below zero. Nearly 5 feet of snow have buried the city, actually forcing the region to shut down. Extremely icy conditions caused a state of emergency, resulting in cancellations and closing for cleanup. Disastrous events included accidents and roof and building collapses. Snow events considered historic in Boston. Along with destruction, the snow could easily cost the nation $1 to $2 billion this winter. Large businesses were forced to close, and people trapped in their houses resulted in a huge loss in potential sales and income. The mayor of Boston has stated that snow removal has already cost the city over $30 million and an expected $10 million for repairs. This has made February the month with the greatest snowfall in the history of Boston, topping the previous record in the winter of 2005 by over 2 feet.
All morning digging out my car. The plow's been working day and night, but there's just huge piles of snow everywhere. The roads are dangerous, and school has been canceled for kids because of the deep freeze.
A new and rising event is the Amnesty International Foundation. Basically, Amnesty International is a group that shows current events happening worldwide, may it be abuse or malnourished children. Their big slogan is, "It's not happening here, but it is happening now." What exactly does Amnesty International do? It is a global movement of more than 2 million members and supporters who drive forward to fight for their rights, and more than 5 million activists who strengthen their calls for justice. Amnesty International uses images from second world countries and photoshops the images into our everyday world to give the illusion that it is happening here in America. This shocking yet amazing campaign gives a message to people that we need to look into what is going on in the world. The website amnestyusa.org gives so much information on the world today.
The disappearance of Malaysia Flight 370 is arguably the greatest mystery in the history of flight, as massive search has failed to turn up a single piece of definite evidence as to where the plane is. Almost a year has passed since MH370 went completely missing, and despite the massive search, it still remains unsolved. Monday morning, the Go Phoenix search vessel arrived in the search area in the southern Indian Ocean and started its search to find the flight, the Australian Transport Safety Board said. It is only the beginning of a year-long search by Australian authorities. The Australian Transport Safety Board has said in a recent statement, "The complexities surrounding the search cannot be understated. It involves vast areas of the Indian Ocean with only limited known data and aircraft flight information." The Australian government said in August that it has picked Virgo Survey, a Dutch company, for the mapping and the next phase of undersea search, along with a vessel, Virgo Phoenix, supplied by Malaysian government to search for the final return of MH370.
On February 17th, 39-year-old Terrence LeBron Thomas was arraigned Tuesday in court charges for assault with the intent to murder, high drug possession, and weapon charges in the bus shelter stabbings on Saturday night in Southfield, Michigan. There were 2 victims in this crime. One of the victims, Southfield police reported, was a male in his 50s who was allegedly stabbed 5 times in the face and neck and 3 times in the upper back. The other victim, also a man in his 50s, was stabbed in the hand while he tried to break up the assault. Local hospital officials reported that the two men did not suffer life-threatening injury, but have been treated for their injuries. Police officials have reported that these 3 men do not know each other at all. Police Chief Eric Hawkins said that while at the bus stop, Thomas had asked if any people were waiting there were Muslim. But when 2 people responded that they were not, Hawkins said Thomas allegedly became upset by that answer, saying he was Muslim and it was not acceptable that they were not. Police are subjecting this to be a possible hate crime, and while we will see Terrence Thomas appear in court on March 4th, he is currently being held on $1 million bail. Now, Nicole Duquette discussing new news about Obama. Immigration has become a hot topic leading up to the 2016 presidential election, but current President Barack Obama continues to do his all to protect these individuals. Obama spoke out on Tuesday with the powerful commitment to overpower immigration reforms if necessary. Just 24 hours before the set date that undocumented immigrants were to comply to the order originally placed, the program was declared to be postponed. This program was set to allow temporary relief from deportation, as well as work permits to these millions of immigrants. Governor Abbott of Texas filed a lawsuit against the U.S. president back in December, saying that he is violating the Constitution with his actions. Officials in the White House fight that the president has the ultimate say in the laws placed over immigration, and that Obama continues to stay consistent with the decisions of the Supreme Court. Abbott released a statement of victory regarding the postponed date declared at the court order, but Obama sees it as only a minor setback. Following this upset, Obama stays confident. "I think that the laws is on our side and history is on our side, and we are going to appeal it."
Racial profiling is becoming a big issue in today's world. In the doll test video, 2 dolls that look exactly alike are placed in front of children aged between 4 and 10 years old. The children were asked various questions, such as, which doll is the pretty doll, which doll is the nice doll, which doll is the mean doll. It is amazing to see that when the children were asked which doll was nice, they pointed out the white doll. When asked which doll was the mean doll, they pointed at the black doll. In another situation, just over a year and a half ago, a black teen male was arrested when he walked out of Barney's, New York with a $350 belt that he rightfully purchased. The NYPD took him in, questioning him and arguing, asking things like, "Where did you get this money from, and how can you afford a belt like this?" The teen named Trayvon Christian was in shock. The local community accused the authorities for racially profiling him. Christian said that he was the right color money, wrong color skin. A few days after the event, he returned the belt and said, "I was nervous the whole time, but not really scared because I knew I had done nothing wrong. I'm not shopping there again. It's cruel. It's racist." It is horrible to think that everything that has been going on with African Americans in today's world, from riots to shooting to arresting someone just because of suspicion, it is not right. As racial profiling is growing in today's society, it is becoming worse and worse. African Americans are getting shot for looking suspicious. The chances of a black man or woman being pulled over are higher than a white man or woman. Take Trayvon Martin, for example. He looked suspicious, and he was shot at because of it. In the Shopping While Black video by Rashid Polo, Polo walks around stores and records himself doing so. While recording, he catches the employees trying to discreetly follow him around, thinking that he was going to steal something. He made a scene and brought attention to the employees that were following him around. This really opened my eyes and made me realize that some people unintentionally racial profile. To see what the children in the black and white doll video was mind-blowing. Just to hear the children consider black dolls mean and ugly is terrifying. When Trayvon Christian was accused of stealing the belt from Barney's, it shocked me. Why would he have to be white to purchase an expensive belt? Why is it that just because he is black, that he is suspected of stealing the belt. It makes you wonder how exactly the world will turn out in just the next few decades. Will racism come back? Will it disappear? Will everything that Martin Luther King Jr. worked hard for go to waste?
Reports say that approximately 6,000 women have been raped since the start of the conflict in war in Syria in March 2011, says the Euro-Mediterranean Human Rights Network. Women in Syria are being targeted by snipers and used as human shields, often with their children, the report also says. These women are forced to leave their lives and homes because of the violence. From London, the Human Rights Watch says that women in Syria have been arrested and detained, physically abused, harassed, and tortured during Syria's conflict by government forces, pro-government militias, and armed groups opposed to the government. Women have not been spared any aspect of the brutality of the Syrian conflict, but they are not merely passive victims, says Lizelle, the women's rights director at Human Rights Network. She also says, women are taking on increasing responsibilities, whether by choice or due to circumstance, and they should not have to pay with intimidation, arrest, abuse, or even torture. Women in Syria are facing serious issues. Their lives are full of terror, abuse, and trauma. Americans don't see the tremendous amount of cruelty these women face every day. We are shielded from the horrors that are happening in other places. Some women have testified against these vicious acts. One woman, Lena, had gone through serious abuse, as her testimony expresses. Lena stayed for about a month in the house of her abductor in a Homs neighborhood, where she was tortured with burning cigarette butts, severely beaten, and raped by her abductor and their friends. Lena underwent abortion and still receives intensive psychological treatment as she suffers from severe post-traumatic stress. Women in Syria are helpless against this violence. They are extremely terrified, and it seems like no one is trying to help them. Women are often neglected and don't receive necessary health care. One testimony states, "While I was detained, I saw many women in their 50s and 60s who suffered from various illnesses and ailments, but were unable to obtain any health care. A woman in the dormitory next to mine, named Huda from Latakia, suffered from asthma and died after a severe asthma attack. No one had offered her any help or medication. Many of the women suffer from back pain and have no possibility of obtaining health care. These are conditions no one should go through. They are unacceptable, and we need to stand up and do something against the violence. No man or woman should have to go through the torture that these women face every day. Something needs to be done in Syria before this violence escalates."
With the terror of ISIS on the rise here in the United States, President Barack Obama has issued the country's first official ISIS kill list. The number one target on this list is Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader of the terrorist group of ISIS. It is highly believed by U.S. officials that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is well aware that he's being tracked down, so he tends to try and stay out of sight. However, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is not the only member of this list. U.S. officials have already established that the United States has already in fact killed off a dozen or so ISIS operatives on this list, including an ISIS chemical weapons expert and weapon manufacturer. ISIS executioners such as we know him by the name of Jihadi John are still in the U.S. center of interest, but the list strongly focuses on targeting those whose death would incapacitate ISIS the most. The problem, as U.S. officials study ISIS more closely, is that the numbers on this list only increase. As the ongoing threat of the Islamic State continues, Western leaders have struggled to understand the ISIS hierarchy. It is well believed that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is one of the key leaders of the terror organization, but officials are skeptical that he is the only high-ranking operative working in the shadows. Much like Al-Qaeda's command network, it is believed that experienced terrorists much older than the Islamic State were recruited and are now comprised in the evolving terror network. The addition of social networking being used by the terror group shows that a younger demographic is highly involved. With a young and willing force, the Islamic State has become increasingly advanced and diverse, targeting low-income misfits with the promises of money and wives. U.S. airstrikes targeting oil fields and other lucrative positions aimed at hurting the unstable terrorist regime's economy and slow its advancement. The Islamic State has been report harvesting the organs of fallen militants as well as those executed, selling them on the black market, showing that airstrikes have been effective in this manner. Doctors unfortunate enough to reside within the Islamic State's territory have been forced to perform such operations or face death. With coalition ground forces making little progress, it's wondered why the United States has not authorized the use of ground forces. As the fighting worsens and the horrendous, inhumane crimes that the Islamic State commits seem to worsen by the week have gone heavily unchecked by Western powers. The cowardly and disgusting acts of beheading journalists, burning a Jordanian pilot alive, crucifying innocent civilians, as well as the most recent report, as many as 45 people were burned alive by Islamic State militants. Retaliation from coalition forces such as the Jordanian military airstrikes and promising an earth-shaking retaliation, and the Egyptian military responding to the mass killings last week with airstrikes. The U.S. along with allied country Japan seem to be taking the supporting role in this fight. The question is, how long are we going to stand idly by as innocent people are murdered by these cowards? As Congress moves to increase efforts against the rising threat, ISIS continues to grow and expand. President Obama's remains firm on his no boots on the ground method, leaving it to forces to take on the ever-evolving Islamic State. Craig Hicks, age 46, was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder on the night of Tuesday, February 10th. The crime took place in an apartment in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, just off the campus of University of North Carolina. The 3 young victims were 23, 21, and 19 years of age, and all attended the university. They all practiced the Muslim religion. Reports say that the 3 victims died on the scene with bullet wounds to the head. What began as a reported violent dispute over parking spaces between the neighbors is now being further investigated by the FBI as a hate crime. Hicks had a negative history of posts on social media sites with comments regarding his hatred of religion. Cynthia Hurley, his divorced wife of 17 years, described him as uncompassionate, but couldn't recall Hicks showing a prejudice towards any particular religion. Witnesses have identified Hicks as the man involved in several confrontations with the victims prior to the shooting. The case will further proceed throughout the first week of March, and in the state of North Carolina, the death penalty could be on the table for Hicks. The Chapel Hill shooting was not only a tragedy for the families and friends of the victims, but for the nation as a whole. This catastrophe, along with several similar events, have opened the eyes of America to the hate that still exists in the world we live in. As American citizens, it is important to understand that every individual comes from a unique culture and background, and to accept these differences. Friends of the victim reported an uncomfortable atmosphere whenever Hicks was near because of his prejudiced behaviors. In the land of the free, no person should feel violated or unsafe because of religious or cultural differences. Friends of the victims now report that they feel as if they are a target because they practice the Muslim religion or share one home together. Friends at the university cannot help but feel disturbed by the shocking news. The 3 victims were innocent, which raises suspicions as well as security concerns. The story quickly became a matter of race when people were appalled by the lack of immediate coverage of the event. Others mentioned the American Sniper movie phenomenon for the hate-filled views it portrays. Overall, the people hope that this will raise awareness to the poor perspective and blurred perceptions of the Muslim faith. Mohammed El-Talib, a close friend of the victims, says that these types of incidents are far too common and recalls his mother always instructing him to be careful out in the world. He reminded the public, don't let this media or ISIS or whatever may be going on in other parts of the world shape your opinion. Base your opinions off the Muslims in your community, especially these 3. I feel like they perfectly blended being an American and being a Muslim. He hopes that this tragic event will only bring the community closer.
Thank you for watching this edition of Fox 24 1/2.
And good night, America.
Mean Ridge!
Mean Ridge! Baby! Mean Ridge!
Mean Ridge!
Come on.
Okay, ready?
Fail. And it is unclear what happened. Mueller also wrote a... I can't.
Come on. No,
You're
just
tired,
start.
so
Just
start.
start.
Spilling your coffee.
Virgo.
For a delicious definition, make the blaze your guiding above. And now Nicole Duquette. Oh crap.
Okay.
You said it right.
I didn't know. I forgot what I was going to say.
Shocking deduct points for this.
She can't. You can't have a teddy bear.
Hurry up!
Oh.
Okay,
Come on,
Alicia.
donut.
I'm gonna sit down. You
Come
just
on.
start.
signing off.
That's nice. Where'd you get that?
Let's actually eat these donuts, though.